We've gone from being a chiropractic college to a university. I think integration is the future.
So I'm here with Dr. William Morgan, who's president of Parker University. And Bill's been a chiropractor for over 30 years, a graduate from Palmer. And looking through his CV, it's pretty safe to assume that it would not fit on one sheet of paper. It's extensive, with huge experience working with the military and personnel at Walter Reed, and a consultant to the White House Medical Center. And it's a pleasure for us to talk to you, and thanks for joining us, Bill.
Thank you, Matthew. It's my honor.
So here at the Society for Promoting Chiropractic Education, we're particularly interested in how the profession can develop and cater for the needs of the profession and our patients over the next few decades. So what do you think are the key elements of development? What does the future hold for chiropractic education?
Well, I'm very optimistic about chiropractic, and I think one of the reasons our board of trustees hired me was because I've got clinical experience, but also because I've got integrated clinical experiences. I've practiced in 5 hospitals and worked with medical doctors extensively, as you said, in the White House, in the Capitol, for the Naval Academy. So I think integration is the future, and I believe my board thinks that's why they brought me here. I'm a clinician foremost. I've done clinical education, but I'm kind of the bridge between the clinician who's integrated and the educator. So that's where I think we should be going, towards more of an integrated model.
And so what do you think makes a good chiropractor then?
Oh my goodness. Well, you have to be the full package. Now, there's certain schools have strengths and weaknesses, and first off, of course, we want to make sure we have our skills down, our manual skills, our adjusting skills. You should be a good adjuster, but you should also be able to be a lifelong learner and to be a critical thinker. I think that's where we've fallen down, is we haven't historically been developing enough critical thinking skills and people who keep up with the evidence and basically able to communicate with other healthcare providers. But if I had just practiced the same way I did when I graduated, I would have essentially practiced the same year 33 times. When I came to DC, I realized, at that point that I really need to pour myself into self-education, patient-centered education, but also to teaching students. And the more I taught, as I brought them into our hospitals and had rotations and residencies, that actually helped me to grow.
So you've been at Parker now for 4 years?
4 years.
And how has the education system changed under your leadership?
Well, we've gone from being a chiropractic college to a university. It happened a few years before I got here, but we really have grown significantly since I've been here. We have 33 different majors, soon to have 34 majors, several master's degrees, but we've been able to put more classes online and to really focus on creating excellent doctors that are ready, that are practice ready, they're ready to integrate into other systems. We have agreements with, I think, 11 VA centers, so our students can choose between 11 hospitals in the VA and a few other hospitals to rotate through, or go through in a traditional chiropractic practice. We've also added 5 or 6 master's degree programs. We have 2 in neuroscience, when it's clinical neuroscience. We have a master's in strength and human performance, a MPH, Master of Public Health, and let's see what else we have in functional nutrition. So how we're set up is we kind of front end the didactic portion of the education. So the last year and some change, it's all clinical. So our students, if they have the bandwidth, if they've got the grade point average and they can keep up with their clinical load, can get a concurrent master's degree that's scholarshiped and their doctor of chiropractic. So we're actually trying to expand the knowledge and giving a little bit more evidence-based approach to this education, but also give them that additional credential so they would come out as a doctor with a MS as well.
And how do you think that impacts the clinical practice of those graduates when they come out? How is that for them personally, and how is that for the profession?
Well, it's going to add another layer of credentials. Now, some of them they can't get it done in the time here. They'll go ahead and continue as they go into practice to get that master's degree on top of it. But what we've done is have really strong evidence-based programs in neurology. And there's some of our postgraduate education in chiropractic is like the Wild West. And it doesn't have a lot of, might not be backed by a lot of evidence. So we want to have a really strong footing in that, so that when they leave, there are, like if they're masters in neurology, we have a clinical master in neurology, so they would come and have to do rotations, residencies there in our neurology clinic, which we've also established on campus. And by doing that, they're not susceptible to going out and learning some stuff that might not be real evidence-based. So we want to give them that background. Plus, if they go to a hospital or the VA or the Department of Defense, it gives them a little bit more of an edge. Also, if they wanted to teach at a local university, as they're building their practice, they would have that option as well.
Yeah. And do you think that the lack of that in the profession and the lack of that in the education arm of the profession has held us back?
I think so. I think that we've not held ourselves to a high standard in what we're allowed to be taught postgraduate or for continuing education. Some things, I've taken continuing education classes that were almost absurd, and we want to make sure that we attain to a high standard. Now, Parker University has the largest postgraduate seminars in the world for chiropractors. This last year in Las Vegas, we had 3,700 people attend our seminar, and we had quite a few from Europe. I know we had 500 people from outside of our country, but we have historically been the largest chiropractic seminars in the world. And we're really trying to have a good combination of there'll be some practice management stuff, and there'll be some other chiropractic principles, but we really want to have a good amount of technique and evidence-based care. We had Jan Harvidsson spoke for us this last year. We also had Andreas Eklund speak. We have scientists come, we have practitioners, and we have well-known stars as well. So we want to make sure we make it fun and make people happy to be chiropractors. We don't want it to be drudgery either. So we take the scientists and we make it and bring them on board to our seminars. It's like a big party. But that's one of the things that's our lineage, though, is we start off as a success seminar company, our organization, and then became a university.
Yeah, I remember hearing Jim Parker speak some years ago. And that was an experience. Now, you get 3,700 chiropractors to your events in Las Vegas. Now, that's about 400 more chiropractors than there are in total in the UK. So one of the challenges for us in the UK is growth. We've got to grow in order to develop as a profession. How do you think we can improve making chiropractic attractive as a career to potential students?
Boy, that's good. Well, for us, I think one of the reasons they brought me here too is I kind of reached a high water mark for a profession, being where I would make house calls to the White House and would take care of our national leaders. I think when you see well-known athletes and professionals, referring to chiropractors and going to chiropractors, and it becomes more mainstream, it keeps growing. In fact, the more chiropractors there are in a region, the more people see chiropractors. And so, growth begets growth. And we're, and plus developing a good product. When I got here, there's something in the United States called, AATP. I forgot what it stands for right now. But basically, it's where if somebody's doesn't quite meet the standards, but they've got a very strong background that would compensate for that, you can let them in. So I significantly reduced that when I got to Parker. We raised our standards. When we raised our standards, we were worried it would affect admissions, but it actually increased it. The higher your standards are, the more people want to get into it. It's it's like an exclusive club. I think Groucho Marx said that he never would want to be part of a member of a club that would allow him to join. So by raising the standards and raising the awareness, I think that is how we're going to do it.
And we tend to, certainly in the UK and probably in large parts of Europe, we tend to attract students from a fairly uniform demographic. So I'm not sure if that's the situation in the US, but if it is, how can we improve the diversity in the profession?
That's a good question. When I went through chiropractic college, it was definitely mainly a white middle class demographic with some minorities. Now here in Dallas, our campus looks pretty much like Texas does. We have a wide variety of diverse cultures here and races, and it adds to the richness of Parker. And we have the Parker principles, and the foundation of that is loving service. So one of the things we do is, it's part of our DNA at Parker is loving service. That's like our mantra here. So we take times throughout the year where we go out to underserved communities and we volunteer there and help out. Our students, our faculty, me, we all go out and we call it Parker Serves. And by doing that, it kind of brings awareness in our whole city, but also we're introducing chiropractic to other people groups too. And I think we've got a pretty good job here of expanding it, but we could do a lot better.
When you go out into the community, are you providing chiropractic care? Are you providing other sorts of
We'll
services?
go to food banks, to animal shelters. We'll go out to equine therapy centers and help out and volunteer. We go to other things besides chiropractic. Now, for that. Now we provide our clinic. We have 3 clinics. We're soon to have 4 clinics. We are considering having a clinic in underserved areas too, or basically, other areas. But in Dallas, we've got a pretty integrated culture here. Most neighborhoods are pretty diverse. I think even in Irving here is the most diverse demographic in the world. A lot of people from Asia, from Africa, Latin America is very diverse. Texas is on fire though. It's really got a booming economy. It attracts people from around the world. So I think generally speaking, Texas is a pretty diverse place, and our campus reflects that diversity.
Yeah. And finally, what do you think the future holds for the profession as a whole?
Well, the future is ours to grasp or to lose. I believe that evidence right now is greatly on our side for drug-free care. Drug-free manual care, exercise, the things that fall in our skill set is what the evidence is backing, is what is needed for most conditions, certainly most musculoskeletal conditions. If we reject that in total, if we try to change the minds of the world, or if we promote unfounded theories or science, that could affect us. We need to not overstate the science. I love chiropractic, and I like the basic premise of removing the barrier to good health. I think that's a great premise, whatever that barrier could be. But if we overstate the science, we lose credibility, and that hurts us.
Lovely. Bill, thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.